The UEFA Champions League did not need to wait for the quarterfinals to become fierce. The round of 16 was more than enough to expose every vulnerability and reveal the true hierarchy of European football. Teams that once seemed invincible began to show their structural limits, while underdogs wrote insane fairy tale chapters, and the true kings of Europe coldly reasserted their dominance. This is no longer a story of isolated individual matches. Instead, it is transformed into an extreme filtration process, a stage where all illusions are stripped bare under the bright lights of the continent's most prestigious competition. After the conclusion of these 8 intense matchups, the Champions League this season is gradually revealing a very clear and formidable power structure. The wheat has been sifted from the chaff, and the remaining contenders now prepare for a war of attrition, where pedigree and tactical genius are the only currencies that matter. Bodo/Glimt were so close to a historic miracle until everything collapsed entirely in the heart of Lisbon. Entering the second leg with a commanding 3-0 lead, the Norwegian representatives stepped onto the pitch at the Estadio José Alvalade with an immense advantage. However, they suffered a devastating 0-5 defeat after 120 minutes of grueling football, concluding a bitter 3-5 aggregate loss. The comeback began early. Sporting opened the scoring through Goncalo Inacio, followed by Pedro Goncalves, doubling the lead to ignite the home crowd. The turning point arrived in the 78th minute when Bodo/Glimt was penalized for a highly controversial handball. Luis Suarez made no mistake from the spot, leveling the aggregate score and sending the match into a nerve-wracking extra time. In the added period, Araujo and Nel completed the historic turnaround, leaving the visitors in a state of shock. Beyond the tactical analysis, this stands as one of the rarest comebacks in Champions League history. Sporting CP became only the 5th team to ever overturn a 3-goal deficit from the first leg in the knockout stages. But the larger story remains Bodo/Glimt. Representing a town of just over 40,000 inhabitants, this club, in its Champions League debut, defeated giants like Manchester City and Atletico Madrid, and eliminated Inter Milan to reach the knockouts. They didn't just cause a surprise, they authored a genuine footballing odyssey. While Coach Kjetil Knutsen and his disciples may feel profound regret, they leave the tournament with the universal respect of all Europe. Sporting, meanwhile, marches on with the absolute conviction that they have just staged one of the most insane escapes in the history of the beautiful game. Chelsea did not just collapse. They were systematically and slowly crushed by PSG, starting from the 6th minute. A humiliating 0-3 defeat at Stamford Bridge sealed a 2-8 aggregate scoreline, marking one of the darkest nights in the modern era for the West London club. Everything crumbled within the opening 15 minutes as a series of individual errors plagued the Blues. Mamadou Sarr's unforced error allowed Kvicha Kvaratskhelia to open the scoring, before Moises Caicedo's misplaced pass allowed Achraf Hakimi to assist Bradley Barcola for 2-0. In the second half, PSG completed the demolition with a goal from Mayulu, following another dazzling sequence by Kvaratskhelia, who terrorized the Chelsea backline all night. The Georgian winger was undeniably the difference maker, finishing the tie with 7 goals and 4 assists in this season's Champions League campaign. Chelsea, conversely, looked disjointed, lacked any cohesive organization, and were ultimately abandoned by their own supporters. Boos echoed around the bridge as early as the first half, with many fans leaving their seats well before the final whistle. Outside the pitch, the image of Trevoh Chalobah being stretchered off added to the somber mood. Manager Liam Rosenior admitted his side died very early in the match and could not recover after falling so far behind. While PSG sent a clear message that the defending champions are peaking at the right time, Chelsea is left to pick up the pieces of a broken season. Manchester City attempted to reignite hope at the Etihad Stadium, but within a few minutes of utter chaos, Real Madrid extinguished those flames. The critical moment arrived in the 17th minute when Federico Valverde played a pinpoint through ball to Vinicius Jr., who accelerated toward the City goal. Following a frantic scramble, Bernardo Silva instinctively blocked the ball with his hand on the goal line, resulting in a straight red card. The numerical disadvantage shattered City's game plan. Vinicius converted the resulting penalty and added a second goal late in the match to secure a 2-1 victory, 5-1 on aggregate. Erling Haaland's late goal was a mere consolation in a tie, dominated by the kings of the Champions League. The match was equally heated off the pitch. City fans relentlessly taunted Vinicius with chants about the Ballon d'Or, to which the Brazilian responded with a provocative, crying celebration, a gesture he later explained as his way of silencing those who doubted him. Despite concerns over Thibaut Courtois leaving the match with discomfort, Real Madrid's camp remains confident. Kylian Mbappé also made his highly anticipated return. While Pep Guardiola lamented the what-ifs of an 11 versus 11 scenario, he admitted City is currently not a complete team. Real Madrid, under Alvaro Arbeloa, moves forward with a sense of destiny, appearing more unified and clinical with every passing round. But Arsenal did not require a chaotic script. They controlled and executed Bayer Leverkusen in a manner that was quintessentially Mikel Arteta. A 2-0 victory at the Emirates, 3-1 aggregate, reflected a one-sided affair where the home side dominated from the outset, registering 12 shots in the first half alone. While Leverkusen's goalkeeper Blazwich performed heroics with a string of saves, he was powerless against the moment of sheer genius from Ibarrechi Eze. Receiving a layoff from Trossard, Eze turned sharply and unleashed a 20-meter strike into the top corner, a goal destined for the goal of the season shortlists. Declan Rice then sealed the tie with a powerful low drive from the edge of the area. Interestingly, Leverkusen had taunted Arsenal before the match regarding their reliance on set pieces, yet ironically, both goals conceded by the Germans came from open play. Kai Havertz saw a goal disallowed, and David Raya proved his worth with a crucial intervention late on. This victory sets up a fascinating narrative as Victor Gyökeres prepares to face his former club, Sporting CP, in the quarterfinals. Arsenal is currently showing the world they are a comprehensive, multifaceted collective capable of going all the way to the final in Munich. Check. Barcelona did not just win. They overwhelmed Newcastle United with a literal rain of goals. The 7-2 scoreline at the Camp Nou, 8-3 aggregate, reflected a match that was both insane and entirely one-sided after the interval. The first half retained some competitive balance, as Rafinha's opener was twice cancelled out by Anthony Elanga. However, the turning point was a penalty late in the first half, coldly converted by Lamine Yamal to make it 3-2. From that moment on, the match was effectively over. Fermin Lopez. Robert Lewandowski, with a brace, and Rafinha again completed the destruction. Rafinha was the undisputed star, with 2 goals and numerous key contributions, while Yamal continued to show maturity beyond his years, stepping up for the penalty despite missing an earlier sitter. Newcastle's Elanga left a mark with a rare brace at the Camp Nou, but his efforts were overshadowed by a defensive catastrophe. Individual errors saw the Magpies collapse in a 15-minute blitz at the start of the second half. Hansi Flick acknowledged the difficult start, but praised his team's second-half control, while Eddie Howe bitterly pointed out that Newcastle defeated themselves through moments of horrific defending. It was a night that propelled Barca to new heights while exposing Newcastle's current ceiling at this elite level. Tottenham won the match, but were still eliminated. A feeling that has become synonymous with Spurs this season. 3-2 victory over Atletico Madrid was insufficient to overturn the first leg deficit, as they exited with a 5-7 aggregate score. However, judging purely by performance, this was one of Tottenham's finest displays in months. Kolo Muani opened the scoring following a brilliant assist from Mathis Tel, before Xavi Simons emerged as the standout performer with a stunning long-range curler and a late penalty. Atletico responded through Julian Alvarez and David Hanko, with Hanko's goal effectively killing off Spurs' hopes of a miracle. Despite the exit, the atmosphere at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium was a major highlight. Instead of the usual boos, the fans offered a standing ovation. The echoes of "I'll support Tottenham until the day I die" returned to the stands, suggesting a renewed sense of faith in the project. Guglielmo Vicario also produced a world-class save from a Giuliano Simeone volley to keep the dream alive until the very end. Coach Igor Tudor admitted to mixed emotions, feeling the sting of elimination, but immense pride in the collective spirit. Atletico Madrid coldly advances, while Spurs leave the competition with something perhaps more valuable for their domestic struggle: a sense of identity. Check. Liverpool responded with the clinical efficiency of a European powerhouse when pushed into a corner. After a 1-0 loss in Istanbul, they pulverized Galatasaray 4-0 at Anfield to advance 4-1 on aggregate. The scoreline barely reflected the absolute dominance, as Liverpool peppered the Turkish goal with 32 shots. Dominic Szoboszlai opened the floodgates from a clever low-corner routine. Mohamed Salah endured a roller-coaster first half, missing a golden opportunity and seeing a penalty saved, while Mac Allister hit the woodwork. However, after the break, Liverpool shifted into a higher gear. Salah redeemed himself by assisting Hugo Ekitike before Ryan Gravenberch doubled the advantage. Salah then capped off the night with his 50th Champions League goal. The absence of Galatasaray fans due to a UEFA sanction meant that the atmosphere was entirely dominated by 60,000 Liverpudlians. The connection between the team and the Kop, which had frayed during difficult periods, was fully restored. Arne Slot described the synergy as near perfect, specifically praising Salah's mental resilience after the penalty miss, despite revealing the Egyptian star left the pitch with a minor physical concern. Liverpool now prepares for a heavyweight clash with PSG. Check. Bayern Munich didn't just advance. They literally pulverized Atalanta. A 4-1 victory at the Allianz Arena concluded a staggering 10-2 aggregate scoreline, a terrifying display of firepower ahead of their clash with Real Madrid. The focal point was Harry Kane, who scored a brace to reach 50 Champions League goals in just 66 appearances, matching Messi and surpassing Ronaldo's pace significantly. Kane's opener came from a VAR-awarded penalty, but his second was a pure masterclass in finishing. Young talent Leonard Carl and Luis Diaz added their names to the scoresheet before Samardzic grabbed a late consolation for the Italians. Vincent Kompany also used the opportunity to debut several academy products, showcasing the depth of the Bavarian squad. Following the match, Kompany sent a clear message to Real Madrid, emphasizing respect, but asserting absolute confidence. Kane was even more blunt, stating that Bayern fears no one and will enter the next war with the momentum of their current form. A genuine declaration of war has been sent from Munich to Madrid. Chuck. The landscape of the Champions League is now vividly clear. For English football, it has been a volatile round of 16. 6 representatives entered the knockouts, but only 2, Arsenal and Liverpool, remain. Manchester City was outclassed by Real Madrid's pedigree. Chelsea was dismantled by PSG. Newcastle collapsed in Catalonia, and Tottenham's victory was bittersweet. It reflects the internal issues and the reality of the Premier League's current standing. Arsenal represents the tactical hope, while Liverpool carries that immeasurable quality, the Champions League DNA. For Italian football, the situation is even more dire. Atalanta, the final hope, was crushed 10-2. With no representatives left in the quarterfinals, a loud alarm bell is ringing for the entire Serie A system. Conversely, super pairings are forming. Arsenal and Barcelona are marching toward a potential dream matchup in the semi-finals, provided they overcome Sporting and Atletico respectively. Liverpool faces a grudge rematch with PSG, a clash where the memories of last season linger. On one side is a defending champion hitting top form. On the other, a team that always knows how to survive in this competition. As the final names are etched into the quarterfinal brackets, the Champions League shifts into a completely different chapter. There is no longer room for naive surprises like Bodo/Glimt, nor for mistakes that can be rectified over 2 legs like Chelsea or Newcastle. Ahead lie the collisions where class, bravery, and that elusive Champions League DNA will decide everything. Arsenal, Barcelona, Bayern, Real, PSG, Liverpool. Each team carries its own narrative, but there is only one ending. If the round of 16 was the filtration process, then from this point forward, it is a true war of the strongest. The road to Munich is paved with the ambitions of giants, and only the most resilient will survive the coming storm.